Occasionally I go ahead and I address the stereotypical, for lack of a better word, really clueless comments that people often make. And we're talking about alcohol use disorder. And this particular comment is talking about when my wife passed away almost 5 years ago. And my son and I, we didn't visit her that much. My son stayed in college, and I visited her maybe, I think, 3 times during the last month of her life. And what people don't realize is that as family members, you're absolutely exhausted from the experience. My experience with my wife the last 6 or 7 years of our life was my son and I, we visited her in hospitals, emergency rooms, at jail, incarcerated, at rehab facilities, outpatient facilities, on and on and on. And it never stopped. And this particular stay in the hospital was when she had fallen down a flight of stairs in her seventh rehabilitation facility. And at that time, I put her in the facility because I was trying to break away from the whole process. And you get exhausted. My son really didn't want to have anything to do with it at this point. My wife was essentially in a coma for the most part the last month of her life, and there was no point in pulling him out of college. People only make these kind of statements. I'll read it to you in a second here, but they only make it because they've never experienced it. And looking from the outside, you just don't have a concept. And I really address this comment because so many family members, this resonates with them, and they've been through this, or their loved one hasn't necessarily passed away, but they're headed in that direction. And you've done everything you can as a family member to get them out of harm's way. You've created the boundaries. You've made the tough love decisions of going limited contact or no contact at all, which is not easy for anybody to do. But these are things that we have to go through. But let me read this real quick. Why wait till the morning to go to her? Why not have the son to come and say goodbye to his mother? Can't help but think these cavalier attitudes had some contribution to combat her desire to quit. And you just go, wow. When families are doing everything humanly possible to not only protect their own mental health from the alcoholic and trying to gear the alcoholic towards some kind of sanity and to maybe some kind of sobriety, and they have failed time and time and time again. They've put yourself in harm's way, they've put your family in harm's way, they've put everybody really around them in harm's way, as well as strangers, by driving around drunk. There's a cutoff point emotionally and psychologically where it becomes self-preservation. It has nothing to do with cavalier attitude. Only people who have no concept, people who have never lived in this type of situation, would make something and a comment like this. And the thing is, it's not just this person's comment. I'm not beating up on this person. It's the attitudes, the general attitude of society in general, who is literally clueless to this disease. And it's always easier to be judgmental and point fingers when they have no concept of what they're talking about, because it's a mental health disease. In fact, when the rehab facility first told me that she had fallen down a flight of stairs and that they had taken her to the emergency room, and ultimately she was admitted into the hospital, my first reaction was, why are you calling me about it? Okay, so she went to the emergency room. Is she going to go back to the rehab? I mean, I was almost like annoyed because they let me know. I had no interest in it at this point. I had put her into a facility, and that she was going to go from the facility for 30 days, and I was going to put her into a sober living facility where she could go and live for a year, so that she would have opportunity to bridge back to her own life. And there's no way I was going to have her any longer live with me. I was at the point where you can't take it anymore. And I think that's been relayed. The thing is, people don't understand that. I think, oh, you're being mean, or you were the problem. Oh my God. The human species has so much tolerance for pain and suffering. That's what you have to understand. And I say this because families go through this, and then they get finger pointed. People point at the family for not taking care of their loved one. I mean, it's like, are you kidding me? Families do everything humanly possible to save and to support and to love that person who has this mental illness known as alcohol use disorder. They do everything, financially, emotionally, psychologically. They put every effort they can in to save that person, and that person fails over and over and over again. There has to be a breaking point. Now, the first time I did go visit my wife, and I'll tell you that in a second. The first time I went to visit my wife in her last month, my brother actually flew out from Vermont. God bless him. It took him like 24 hours to get here. It was raging snowstorms. And she had been there about 2 weeks. The doctors had called me up. Apparently, I realized how serious it was. I didn't even know she was still in the hospital. 3 o'clock in the morning, one of the surgeons called me up and said that her heart had stopped. And I was like, what are you talking about? I thought she was back at the rehab. I thought it was just an emergency situation. And this is the first time that I realized, even discovered that, how far down she had gone, and that she was in fact essentially in a coma. But when I visited her with my brother, it was the first time I had a glimpse into how serious the issue was. And then that's when I started calling her family, and my family. And we did, eventually see her. I went to see her twice, once with my brother, once with my sister, who came out about a week later, and then the day she passed away. So I drove to UCLA, which is a little over 100 miles from where I live, 3 times during that last month. And that was my limit. That was my limit. It was a very horrible time, very horrible month. But to understand that exhaustion is really the point of this, and so that it resonates with families who are going through this. And again, I'm the author of Amanda, A Cautionary Tale of Alcoholism. It's now on Amazon. It's also on the link in my link tree. You can go right there, go to the website, and the PayPal link is right there. It's the story of my wife's 20-year decline with alcohol use disorder, and unfortunately, she passed away almost 5 years ago this February. Again, I go live Monday through Friday, right around 6 o'clock, 9 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. I'm sorry, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And then we have the Facebook group. It's called There's an Alcoholic in the Family. And when you're ready to work with me one-on-one, I have the coaching program. Again, link is in the bio. Set up a breakthrough call. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour. We do a deep dive into what's going on with you and your family. The call is free. The program is definitely not. But I'm looking for people who want to commit to themselves and to their family and change their lives forever. And again, thanks so much for listening.